Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Cesar Pablo Renteria. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a senior program coordinator for NCORE. Today, I'm speaking to you guys from Norman, Oklahoma, on the lands originally stewarded by the Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, and Osage nations. I am a Latine man with straight black hair and curtain bangs. I'm wearing a checkered short sleeve button up, and there's a gray wall behind me. Thank you guys for coming to NCORE 101 webinar. We're all very excited that you guys are here today to listen to these great community members speak on NCORE a little more. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our lovely panelists so they can introduce themselves. Go ahead and start with Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're calling in from. My name is Vanessa Gonzalez Siegel. My pronouns are she, her in English, ella in Spanish, and ella in Portuguese. I currently serve as the director of the LGBTQ Campus Resource Center at UCLA in Los Angeles, California, also known as Tavangar, the traditional home of the Tavangar and San Gabriel's peoples. And I'm also the Cutie BIPOC Caucus co-chair for NCORE. Excited to be here.
Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, y'all. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Akeem Riley, and I use any and all pronouns. I have the privilege of being acting as the director of the Gender and Sexuality Center for Queer and Trans Life at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I also am one of the QT BIPOC co-chairs for the NCORE QT BIPOC caucus. I've been attending NCORE for many moons. I think this is my 13th or 14th year, and really happy to be in community with you all and to share some insights.
Thank you so much, Michael. Pat, go ahead.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Pat Lowry. I've been attending NCORE for, I think I'm coming up on my 29th year. I'm not positive of that. But once you pass 5 or 6, what does that matter? My role with NCORE is advocate, supporter, all things to make the experience for others as good as well as possible. I did serve on the advisory committee at one point. I retired from Michigan State University several years ago. I failed that retirement, but I was director of the inaugural Women's Resource Center for Michigan State.
Thank you so much, Pat. Siddhartha?
Good afternoon, morning, everyone. My name is Siddhartha Asui. I'm an enrolled citizen of the Mandan Hidatsa Arikara tribes, and I'm also Cherokee descent. I work for the National Education Association as a senior program policy analyst and specialist, where I work on the American Indian Alaska Native portfolio for the union. I have been a part of NCORE for over 20 years. I started out as a student scholarship recipient. I worked on the NAC. I was an intern for the conference. And now I am a happy board member of the Southwest Center for Human Relations. Just started that in December. So very happy to be here and excited to be with the other panelists.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, so this is actually only my second NCORE. I'm in a very similar role that the Delta was. I'm originally from, my family is originally from Mexico, but we settled here in Oklahoma. I had a pleasure of being a practicum student last year. Apparently did good enough job to be welcomed back in as a staff member. So this is only my second ever NCORE, and I'm just also really excited to hear all of y'all talk a little bit more about y'all's experiences and what NCORE means to you and y'all's relationship with that. Oh, look at that. With that said, there is one more panelist. We'll give Beth a second. Hi there, Beth. Or go ahead and pin
Hi,
you.
sorry I'm
Oh
late.
no, don't be
I
on that
am
move.
on another meeting.
There we go. Yeah, Beth, I think we just did introductions, so you're actually right on time if you just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bethany Simpson. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm at the University of Washington in Seattle. Good to see some of you. Hi, everyone.
Right, with that said, the way this is going to operate is I just have a few questions for all of you guys, and after that, we'll turn it over to a Q&A for the attendees. There is a Q&A feature if you guys want to start using that little tab at the bottom to put in your questions that we can touch to later at the end of this webinar. But yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. I guess I'll just ask this to the group of y'all and whoever wants to take it, and if multiple people want to take it, we'll just take turns. But what is our relationship to NCORE? No takers.
I
I
mean,
guess I'll take all mine. Yeah, go ahead.
I can go. Like I said before, I was a student at the University of Oklahoma and I had a presentation accepted as an undergrad, and that's how I was introduced to NCORE. That was probably 2003 or 4 when it was in Miami. At the time, I had no idea what a big deal it was to be accepted into a national conference and like that. I just wasn't aware that it was such a big deal. But when I went there, I met some of the most amazing people, stayed in touch with them. And as I mentioned before, I went on to become a intern for the conference for a couple of years. I served on the NAC. I've been a part of the American Indian Alaska Native Caucus and was named to the board in December. So I just have kind of grown up in this conference, and it's just one of the best conferences I've ever attended. And it really and truly feels like family. And I've met and made family at this conference. So that's my relationship. It started, I was probably in elementary school when I started going. Because it's been over 25 years. It kind of ages me when I say that. So I kind of hate doing that.
Oh, no, that's so understandable. So Delta, do you feel like you felt that family, that magic like right away, or was this something that kind of it's been 25 years in the building? Like when was like a moment where you were like, oh, this is community?
It definitely started growing. The first time as an undergrad, I was just kind of overwhelmed by everything. It was so much to learn. I was kind of unsure of myself at that time. In undergrad, I really kind of felt like I didn't belong in a lot of places, and I felt kind of like an outsider, and I didn't fully understand that that was the institution, and I was designed to have that feeling. And so, NCORE helped me recognize all of these different things that were occurring in my life. And helped me give name to that. And as I got more confident, I started talking to more people at NCORE and meeting the staff and meeting people at the vendor stations and meeting other speakers. And so probably in my NCORE, well, as a student intern, I think I really started making relationships with people. And that's when I recognized that this was my family as well. But it was really overwhelming that first year, just because, being an undergrad, I kind of felt a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, do they know I'm here? Do they know they accepted me to be in this presentation? Do I belong? And so I had to kind of work through those feelings before I was able to be comfortable with people and kind of create those familiar relationships.
Incredible. I feel like there's a good moment there to remind our attendees that this isn't something that's new. I mean, I think we're doing a better job now of welcoming in students and welcoming in folks who this is their first time and making it a space where they get to be and exist and feel well and feel accepted. But there's new students every year, right? So I think what I want to ask is for us to remember that if we ever see a student or interact with them at the conference, just letting them know that this is a space for them, and if this is something that they can find community in, because we were all that student at some point, right? And some of us were at one point our first attendee. So yeah, does anyone else want to talk about their relationship with NCORE? Go ahead, Vanessa.
Sure. Similar to Sedalta, I started coming when it was in Indianapolis. I think 2014, I think, or 2015. I forget what year it was, but that was my first NCORE. And I was also a student as well. And that was around the time when I was starting to realize I wanted to go into higher ed and student affairs professionally, but had only thought it was a thing to do at the college I went to undergrad at. I didn't realize it was an actual field and practice and industry. And so going to NCORE was one of the first moments of like, oh, so I can actually like do this. I can really invest in a career and build a career. And, I was working at an LGBTQ center at my undergrad as well as I work in now professionally. And I knew for me, the way I wanted to navigate and practice trans and queer inclusion work was to be cognizant of race, to be thoughtful of class, to be thoughtful of all the identities that everyone in our community holds. And NCORE has been so instrumental in the development of how I develop as a practitioner, the net connections that I built with everyone. Similar to Delta, my first year, I was like, why are there so many people here? this is so much. Oh my God. But then slowly, and through the years, this will be my 10th or 11th NCORE now. And I think every year I walk away with somebody who's a new family member, right? Like definitely there's the relationships that you build year over year as you're presenting multiple times or, just seeing familiar faces over and over again. You're just like, hey, aren't you in the Midwest somewhere? Aren't you like over here? Didn't you present last year about this? Like that happens very often. And NCORE is definitely a space where I'm originally from New York City. So like when a stranger comes up to me, I'm about to fight. But NCORE is a space where usually people are friendly and warm and will come up to you and also really appreciate when folks come up to us as well. So it's a really wonderful space. And it's what I think is particularly in this moment where the state of our work, NCORE has always been the one of the few times in the year where I feel like I'm leaving with my cup being filled, not further emptied.
That's beautiful. Yeah, hopefully no hoop earrings will need to be removed at this year's conference. But
But
yeah,
if we
no,
need to, we will.
we are always at the ready as a
Mhm.
community, so we know that. But yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa. That's beautiful. I think there's something for everyone every year, no matter how many times you've attended. This is an ever-growing field. There's always something new that you get to learn, and I really love that you continue to grow in that way. All right. Can I ask again if anyone wants to talk about the relationship? If not, I can move on to the next question.
I feel like maybe I should go because I don't know how introductions went. I realized because we're all penned here that I was just saying hi to the other panelists, and then I realized there were
Sorry,
people
Beth.
here. So I'm so sorry. So yeah, I'm Bethany Simpson, and I'm here actually because I'm part of the POC, People with Lived Experience in Foster Care, and People of Color as Adoptee Caucus. So I came into NCORE 2016, which I feel like is a long time, but actually it's not. There's so many people that have been here, so many other longer than me. But I had started at University of Washington, and honestly, I felt like I had arrived. Like we're going to this conference, or I get a hotel room all to myself. It was amazing, but the community was so beautiful, and just all the workshops. I mean, I was like, what is that? Like I felt like truly I had arrived. So that was in 2016. And I've been so lucky to be able to go every year except that COVID year. And then in 2022, a small group of us started the POC Adoptee Conference. And I think that just like really transformed my experience at NCORE. Like I really love the pre-cons because in the pre-cons that is really an opportunity to really get to know people because you're together for so long. But we just saw this gap of at NCORE for people, for adoptees, and we felt there was this need. And then the community just grew so fast. And then, I got to connect. We just get to connect with each other from all over, like across the states, and then academics and what's happening at every school. And I feel like that also with the affinity group leaders. Like I think because we're all doing similar work and really care about bringing our communities together, there's this community there. And I think for me, that's been so transformative is the community building across the US and supporting one another in this work and supporting students, supporting young professionals, people just at every, you know, all these different places in the university. And so, yeah, my experience has grown. And I think it was a little overwhelming at first. I was like, there's all these people, but if you can just find a few people at your pre-con or go, if there's an affinity group, if you can go to those and find one or two people, it really just, yeah, I think it's easy to do actually, because I've never been to a conference where people are so friendly and open. And so that is why I'm here, and it's great to be here with everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Beth. Um, Pat, would you like to touch on relationship?
No,
It's so
I
valid.
think I'd like to let you go on to the next
Next
one.
question.
I'd like to talk about that one.
Oh, yeah, then let's start with that. Okay, Pat, what brought or continues to bring you to NCORE?
This one seemed more appropriate for me since as we are an intergenerational panel, which I love, and I seem to be the matriarch here. no judgment, no judgment at all. But I thought, because I said I retired, that the what continues to bring me to NCORE takes on a different kind of meaning. I've not given up the work. I've not given up the fight. I'm still trying to make a difference. I do have clients. It is in these particular times almost devastating to see the work that has been done become eroded. And it must be more of a challenge. No, I can't say that. It's a different kind of challenge depending on where you are in your career. And so what I would like to say is to stay hopeful. And I continue to come to NCORE because it is that point. It is that set of interactions. It is this family, as has been mentioned, that helps sustain that hope. The other piece for me is that you always have something to learn. We're always guilty of putting our foot in our mouth. We're always present when we wish we had done something else, when we wish we had been thoughtful and aware enough in support of our colleagues, in support of the work that we do. And NCORE helps bring me back to that awareness, to that reaffirmation that for the rest of our lives, for the rest of my life, I have work to do, and that's and it's a safe place in which to do it. So I continue to come because if I don't, then I lose my currency. I lose the ability to be authentic. I lose the perspective, the ability to shift perspectives as we all experience whatever these ups and downs and leaps and backward strokes and all of that to take place in this work that we do.
Thank you so much. That was so well put. As a young professional, I really appreciate the wisdom that you just provided. Um, I want to ask our attendees to come to this with a bit of cultural humility, right? To understand that sometimes we are wrong. Sometimes we have a preconceived belief that we didn't yet kind of have acknowledged in ourselves. And I think this conference is a really good opportunity to confront that and do that in a safe space, like you said, and work through that. And also just thank you for committing to yourself and committing to your community, Pat, to constantly be growing. Like you said, you retired. You don't have to be coming to these things, but we thank you for it. I thank you for it. I think you saying that already recentered myself in preparation for NCORE, and that is the spirit of NCORE of what you just said. So thank you for that. I already feel myself getting ready for what's coming in 2 weeks. So thank you. Does anyone want to touch on what Pat said, or kind of take their own spin on what brought you or what continues to bring you to this space and to this community?
I can jump in to share a little bit. Yeah, I similar to many folks, started attending NCORE as an undergraduate student. My first NCORE was in San Diego, which I believe was 2009. And I think I first went similar to Vanessa. I was beginning to be aware of student affairs as a field and a space, but I didn't really understand it fully. I think for me also, being Black, being raised in a home that was like very pro-Black and learned a lot about my Blackness and, had the privilege of doing a lot of those things. That was something that, even into my undergrad at a historically white institution, I was deeply aware of like, Black is beautiful, there's going to be systemic and structural inequalities that you'll face as a Black person. And student affairs sort of like helped me see like an avenue to like how to like, it's not going to beat racism. It didn't, it won't. But I think some ways that it could create some spaces for a reprieve or, community, things of that nature. But I think NCORE also was one of those first places I was able to meet so many Black queer practitioners, Black, brown, and Indigenous practitioners. Takesha Morgan is a name I want to like uplift, who is the you know, mind behind the QT Pot Caucus, was the original person we were handed the caucus to from. And at my first NCORE, I remember just being so taken aback and feeling really like isolated, going to a small school in Minnesota that there were like a few of us, to seeing all these folks and being like, you can do this kind of work. And I was just like really, really taken aback by that in really beautiful ways. And so although, I've worked through my, sexuality, my gender identity, or that journey is, still something I'm always navigating, but now as a practitioner whose work gets to really focus on uplifting, supporting Black, brown, and Indigenous queer community members, NCORE really helped me see some possibility models that I don't think I would have saw at other conferences, right? I'm not, no shade to those places. I've been to ACPA, right? I've been to NASPA. I've been to Creating Change. I went to those spaces and I was like, okay, sure. But when I was at NCORE, I was able to really see those possibility models. And it's not perfect. I'm sure I'll talk through some of those nuances of the space as it is a place I'm invested in and think about it as community. But it still really helped me do that. And I hope and strive to do that with folks who are practitioners coming after me, as well as, getting my tools sharpened and community cup filled and all those good things too. I'm rambling. I will let someone else chat too, if they have thoughts.
Oh, you're great, Michael. That was beautiful. Yeah, does anyone else have thoughts on this topic? All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to the next question. What are 3 insights or advice that you would share with a first-time attendee? I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be 3, but just any advice, any insights that you guys want to provide to first-time attendees.
I can go. I know that and I've said this before, the program booklet is kind of overwhelming, but really take some time to familiarize yourself with that, because there are tracks that you can look for specifically. You can find certain speakers. There's a lot of information in there. There's going to be a lot of sessions you want to attend, but you can use the app and go in there and mark the sessions you want to be at, so you know when they're happening. You get updates on that. But also, like I said, the tracks in the back are super helpful. It'll have student, whatever your kind of level is, so you can find out where you want to go. I definitely think you need to talk to people. I was super shy that first year, maybe the first couple of years. I was super overwhelmed, but everyone is so friendly. Talk to people, ask questions. If you see me, come up, we'll talk. I'm open to that. I don't mind. Because I think one of the best things that you're going to learn from this conference are going to be the connections that you make with people. And those are going to serve you, and you're going to work with people in the future. I have met so many people in NCORE that I've had come in and be speakers for me. I met people at Speak Out, and I now serve on the board for Speak Out. So, I mean, you just have to really start putting yourself out there. I think in the time that we're in now too, the one thing that I found that has kind of been my saving grace is connections. So I've been reaching out to people almost every week to check in. People have been reaching out to me to check in, because every day is super stressful. But I just want to like make sure that people have those connections, and you're going to meet people who are in the same boat as you. You're not alone. I think a lot of us have felt these moments where we feel really isolated in our campuses and our work. And when you get there, you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. There are other people who think like me, who want the same things as I want. And you make those connections. And that's one of the most important and valuable things that you'll take from NCORE.
Thank you, Siddhartha. And before opening it back up to any other insights or advice the rest of our panelists have, I just want to remind folks to use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of the Zoom. right next to where, on the bottom bar, you'll be able to use the Q&A. I understand some folks are sending some questions in the chat. Those can get lost really quickly just when folks, start communicating in there. The chat is meant to be a chat. Please use the Q&A if you guys have any questions, and we'll try to get to them when we can. But yeah, does anyone else have any insights or advice that you guys want to give first-time attendees or any attendees?
Build in breaks throughout the conference. I know my first couple of years, I was simultaneously overwhelmed, but also super intellectually stimulated by all the sessions. And so I was trying to like cram everything in and do so much in every single day, and I completely burnt out. And NCORE is a marathon, not a sprint. It is a long conference. The days are long, but the week is short. So I would say definitely build in time to take breaks. Because where we're going to be in Manhattan is, shout out to my fellow New Yorkers on the call, is there's a lot of stuff around there as well. So I really recommend that like you build in time to also like explore the space. Really close to where the conference is going to be held is actually this organization called the People's Forum, where they host a lot of like social justice kind of programs and events, and then they're just open to the public, and that is only a few blocks away. So making sure that you're also building in time to engage with the community that you're going to, right? New York isn't just a tourist trap, it's also a city. It has a life and all of that. And so I also encourage folks to think about what does this look like actually like in like what is New York when I'm not in Times Square?
I'd like to add to this, if you're coming with a group, with a team, for you to um, make sure that you set aside time to tap into each other's experience while you're there. Maybe decide two or three want to go to the same session or another session. Divide the sessions up a little bit so that you can have a group um, experience. But the touching base daily, maybe twice a day, in the morning, maybe during lunch, or certainly at the end of the day, so that you get the fullness of the conference. It can be overwhelming, but it is manageable. The other thing is to get used to the style of NCORE, and that is this is not usually someone standing in front of you at a platform reading a presentation to you. Most of the sessions, an expectation of the presenters and those participants is that this is totally interactive, can be off the chart interactive. So be prepared for pivot. Hopefully you won't pivot to your period, but just pivot, and be prepared for that. So
Thank you, Pat. I think we have a Q&A from Michael. Are you able to get to that, Mike, or do you want me to read it out?
I can see it now. Yeah, anything I wish someone had told me beforehand around presenting. Absolutely. I think it's important. NCORE is a huge deal, right? National Conference on Race and Ethnicity in Higher Education. I think we should take it very seriously, feel very honored, but to also be sure to know that you were chosen for a reason. I think it's really easy to think that it's like, a fluke, or that you somehow like got in on the skin of your teeth, but like, the things and to share that. I know for me, anytime I'm doing any kind of presentation, and I have had the privilege of presenting at NCORE with pre-cons and caucus things and invited sessions, quite often at this juncture of my life. And I don't take it lightly at all, but I think I still think it's important to practice. You can't get it perfect, but practice does make better. So for me, something I like to do, which may feel kind of corny, and I do this, for interviews, I do this for anything I'm like really, feeling kind of energized around. It's like just practice what you're going to say in a mirror so you can kind of get used to the words around your mouth as you kind of share them. I think that's something I've always really try to remember to practice, and also to really be secure in yourself that you know why you're here, and you're here for a reason, and to be okay if things kind of go left, you know. I've had some times where my computer stops working in a presentation, and be okay to just like close that and do something else and speak from your heart and your mind, and not just, you know, kind of shut down. Because you never know what can happen. You can practice as much as you'd like, and those things can still, unfortunately, kind of manifest. And I think just being able to be willing for that to happen and be willing to ride the wave, whatever way it goes. I don't know if anyone else has any insights, but thank you for the question, Radius.
Yeah, does anyone else want to kind of piggyback on that? All right.
Oh, I have something. Oh no, I think Miss Pat, you go. No, oh, you unmuted. Okay. I was just gonna say, remember, like people are there to see you and your expertise. So there's like, I don't know how many workshops are there at once, but like ground into the people that are there and fill into their energy. The energy and the love at NCORE is like so you can feel it. And so try to focus for me, if I can focus on the people and remember they're here, they chose to be in that room with you because of who you are and what you are bringing to NCORE to share. And so I would just ground in that and just feel the energy. And I actually do a grounding before my sessions, and those are for myself as much as they are for the audience. Yeah, you'll do great. Yeah.
All right. Any other bit of advice or insights for folks that anyone wants to provide? If not, we can go ahead and just move on to the next one. Okay. When do you feel is a common misstep when attending NCORE? What are some missteps that folks can do?
Not wear comfortable shoes.
That's fair. That's really
He's
fair. There's a lot
not
of running going
wrong.
on.
Yeah. What comes up for me is something, Cesar, that you talked about a little earlier around like not having that humility coming into the space. Because I think for a lot of folks, we are often the only folks on our campus or one of very few folks on our campus that do this work, but that's in a one particular space. Now we are in a conference where everyone does this work, right? Everyone does this work differently and uniquely and all of that. And so, and also as Pat, you were saying before, like we all have something to learn and we all have areas of growth. And I think taking like a self inventory prior to coming to NCORE would be really beneficial to, like, of course, it's like, okay, what workshops do I need to like professional development on? What looks interesting, but also like, what are my areas of growth? Like, what are some topics that I'm not as familiar with? And I think when folks may not do that or try to do that during the conference, they may not feel like they get the most out of the experience. Where I feel like if you do that prior, you're going to set yourself up for success.
Very important, very important. I just want to touch on Victoria's comment in the chat. She sent a fun little website, things to do in New York City if anybody wants to look into that. But also her comment, it's the rainy season in NYC. Bring your raincoat and an umbrella. That's actually pretty good advice if I've ever heard it, because I wasn't thinking about that yet. Yeah.
I kind of want to
I think
piggyback on what Vanessa said, especially around going outside your comfort zone. I think there's an inclination to go to things that you know about or that you already do. Like I work in a lot of native spaces, and so I often don't always go to the native sessions, not because I don't think they're amazing, but because I know I have other areas I need to grow in and that I need to learn about. And so I push myself to go to other sessions, things that are interesting to me. They may not even be a part of what I do for work, but I am really interested in the topic. And I think that it can be easy to kind of go to places that you're comfortable. So go outside your comfort zone a little bit. Pat's right, wear comfortable shoes, drink lots of water, take breaks when you need them, and just kind of make sure that you're really looking out for yourself, because it can be kind of stressful. I think in the political climate we're in, A lot of us are from universities. We're dealing with so much back in our institutions. Just make sure that you're taking care of yourself in these spaces because it can be really intense. Some of the sessions, you can be hearing things that are hard or stressful, and some things are really amazing and great too, but you just have to make sure you're checking in with yourself and, hey, I might need to step out for a little bit, take a break, take a walk around the block. And then again, push yourself outside of your comfort zone because it's painful, it can be uncomfortable, but you learn so much more when you push yourself a little bit.
And like a real like a one small thing I think that can be really helpful for NCORE, um, for life in general, but particularly at NCORE, is drinking water. Like keeping a water bottle on you, maybe two, and just making sure that you're like staying hydrated. You're gonna do a lot of walking and also like a lot of thinking, even if you're like sitting like kind of stagnant. So making sure you have water and like a lot of folks have said, like yes, like particularly if well, I know for myself that when I was first attending NCORE, like my first couple, if I like needed to go to the bathroom or like needed, maybe felt like a session wasn't exactly what I wanted, I'd be like, well, I have to sit here and like listen to the session. And like you don't. You can leave a session at any time you feel like you like need a snack because your blood sugar's low, or also because you or like, actually, this isn't what I want. Or maybe you're in a group chat with the folks you're at NCORE with, or maybe someone you met at NCORE and you're like, this session is amazing. We were talking about this at this pre-con. You should come over here. Like, leave the session. It's okay. I know that it may seem really rude to the like the presenters, but I promise you that they're like in the zone and aren't gonna take it really personal. I know that it's you know, there's so much knowledge and there's so many times. I know some people will like be like, I'm gonna go to this half for this session and then go to that latter half for that session. And that's okay. You know, you says like, you know, pick a 4 for 4, you can mix and match. It doesn't have to be exclusively, I gotta sit in this one session. Um, I also will say, because and I do think there's, you know, not to take over, but like be sure to use the Q&A, but someone asked the question of like how I should dress for NCORE. And I saw that. And I think whatever feels good to you is what you should wear. I think, you know, if you want to wear comfortable shoes, that's a good idea. I know myself, I'm usually in a heeled boot for NCORE because I like to be extra, extra tall during that. And it's a little bit of a fashion moment for me. It feels important. But you can wear whatever you want to wear, whatever feels good to you. People may tell you to dress professionally, but I don't really think that's necessary. Slash professionalism isn't real. So
Thank
yeah.
you, Michael. Thank you. You're 100% correct. Professionalism is not real. Dress whatever you feel good in, is what my advice is for that. Some of us feel good in suits, some of us feel good in jeans and a t-shirt, and that's completely okay. Michael, themselves will be fitted up. I can confirm that. But yeah,
I just want to note that Victoria has a really good tip in there as well to bring an external charger. So important. If my phone goes dead, I'm just going to be lost. And that's something you don't want to have happen. They do have stations you can charge in there, but I wouldn't want to rely on anything else just to keep my phone alive.
yeah, definitely pack a charger on you, definitely pack a battery with you. Also everything with the I think Sedelta, or maybe it was Beth, touched on a little bit about the app. The app hasn't gone live yet. It will soon. We're finalizing some things this week, and hopefully by next week it'll be live, and you'll be able to look at all the sessions, look at the descriptions, see who's presenting. That'll be only up for attendees who've registered and kind of put in the system. I saw a question about that in the Q&A, which Steph mentioned, but I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that. But yeah, it's another reason to keep your phone charged, honestly, because everything is on the app and you'll be able to view where everything is. Sometimes rooms change, and it's a good way to realize where they've been moved to.
I have one thing. Oh, wait, go ahead. You want to say something?
Oh, Pat, I
Oh,
think
you're
you're muted.
muted.
Let's see if we can unmute you. There we go.
One thing, be prepared for food lines. So particularly those who really must not just take care of the water, but you're sitting a lot. and there's salt in prepared foods and all those things that happen from a health-wise perspective. Be prepared for food lines. There aren't enough and can never be enough food stations within the places where the sessions will take place, and they will take place in multiple venues. And so don't pass the sandwich place without grabbing one, even if it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Somewhere during the day, that sandwich or whatever that is, repass, is going to come in handy. And so it's like what your mother said about bathrooms. Don't pass one without using it, even if it's not the time yet. Do the same thing around food, particularly for those who may have challenges around particular kinds of food that you have to or you want to eat. And then New York has got so much to offer, particularly from a deli perspective. So.
I was just gonna say, I feel like, I don't know if we already said it at the beginning, but I know we've all been talking a lot about like making connections and saying hi to people. Anyone can come say hi to me during the conference. And also I feel like the affinity groups are such a great place to do that, because for me, I remember there was like a dinner and I didn't go my first year because I was like a little tired. I was tired actually, because I was also one of the people that went to everything. But I feel like those affinity group spaces, it like is smaller, and also there's so much you're processing at NCORE. It's really great to be with people that have the same intersection that you do with whatever it is you're talking about. So it's really a place to process and just find community and just like make it a little smaller. And also the space is so great. And I was thinking this year, I imagine there's going to be so much. It's going to be so, I feel intense, right? Like, so I was just thinking it'll be so important for us to be like caring for ourselves, like spiritually, whatever that means for you, like journaling or like praying, whatever folks are doing. I feel like we're in this world right now and we're being attacked. Um, and so I just think we'll be processing quite a bit, maybe more than other years. And so just to like ground, however that looks for you as we go into this space where we are really supported. And also, I imagine we're going to be talking about and facing a lot of things. That is great that we're doing that. And also we're facing, it'll just be so present, and so do whatever grounds you.
Thank you all. I guess we can move on to our final question, but just the ones we've written out. I'm sure we'll have other ways we can take this panel, but any specific goals for this NCORE? Any specific goals you have for NCORE or for yourself in NCORE?
I can go. I think this year I really want to check in with people, and just kind of be in community with everyone, spend time with people. It's such again, it's such a stressful time. I'm headquartered in DC, do a lot of policy work in DC. And so I'm seeing what's happening in higher ed and K through 12 and our education system and our democracy, quite frankly. And I feel like everyone and everything is under attack right now. And part of what I want to do at NCORE is just to check in with people to make sure everyone's okay, give people hugs, be in community. And then hopefully, I think Vanessa said this earlier, this is a conference where I am really tired at the end, but I also feel really full at the end. I really feel replenished. I feel energized and I feel ready to take on the next year. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to. My goal is to make sure that I'm connecting with as many people as I can, trying to get to the sessions that I want to get to, but again, just really checking in on people. Even NCORE has gone through some growing pains and it had some things come up in the last 6 months. So just really making the most of my time there and being with everybody in that space together is really my goal. Anyone else want to go? Michael, Vanessa, Beth, Pat?
Yeah, I can.
Lot.
I think that's a really. I mean, it was such a so astute and so succinct. So I think that's a really great goal. I want to make sure I'm challenging myself to think and learn more. You know, as someone who gets to do a lot of work around Black, Brown, Indigenous, queer things, like want to make sure I'm thinking about those intersectional ways of being. And I know NCORE's done a really good job of thinking about, you know, having things around, you know, what's happening in Palestine, what's happening with Indigenous communities here, what's happening with our disability and race. So like really, you know, continuing to go to the margins of the margins. And I really, as I get older, like I said, I've been going to NCORE for 13, 14, you know, set times now, making sure I'm doing a really good job connecting with new practitioners who are always pushing the field in really dynamic ways as I continue to get older, they are younger, and I want to make sure like I'm still staying abreast and staying connected. But also, yeah, being in community. The world is so hard right now for all of us. So making sure that we are spending some time just to hug, look each other in the eyes, share a meal, laugh, cry. I'm excited for that.
Yeah,
It'd be
I would say
wonderful to be in community. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I just have really quickly say sorry. I think one of my goals is to really connect with new practitioners this year in particular. A lot of folks are entering the field. I mean, our work has always been precarious, right? Our work has always been under attack. Our work has always been scrutinized in a different way. Um, but right now I can like I'm anxious, right? And I've been in this work for 10 years. And so I can't even imagine for like newer professionals, folks who are just finishing grad programs or starting grad programs, or they're getting their first like, full-time role post-graduation and wanting to connect with folks just around like support. And as someone who's like a mid-level professional, like what does that support look like? Because I think it's a very meaningful work that we do, but it will always be hard and it's especially acutely challenging right now.
We have a break for anyone else who wants to think about what their goals are and talk about it. But I have a question from Gaurav. How do you suggest working with folks who may not be open to information that challenges them? What is y'all's experiences as presenters and attendees with folks like that?
I This is how I have navigated it in the past. This is not the best way to do it. This is not because I think it's all circumstantial and like context based, right? Like, does the participant like just like not agree with like the argument that you're making, or do they just not support the work that you're doing, and then they're there to be intentionally antagonistic? Like that has happened, right? That happens at national conferences, and so I think it always depends. But I think for me, if I'm facilitating a session or a workshop, particularly at NCORE, and there's an attendee that comes that is beyond just like, oh, I'm feeling challenged by the subject matter, but like I'm actively moving into opposition and antagonizing of this position, I kind of address it head on and very clearly in the moment when that's happening, because there's going to be an impact, particularly if not just for me as a facilitator, but for the other folks in the room as well. And so as a facilitator, it's how do I do this? And usually I will, use the facilitator skills that most of us here have around like, oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, well, what I'm hearing is this. Is that actually what you're saying? Or is that not? And I think giving folks the opportunity to, of course, be heard and say what they want to say, but I think also like not letting it slide, I think is really critical and important. It's like, yes, you are entitled to think that, and also like that thought is factually incorrect, and like we can talk about that, and like here's why. But I also think ultimately, like beyond just like at NCORE, like generally at like at work, for example, like I navigate that very differently in my work doing LGBTQ work, and I think something that I try to focus and bring people to is like, we all work in higher education, which is for a larger good. And so how are we actually doing the work that we say that we're supposed to be doing if we're not doing these things in these ways? And asking folks about their why and their mission is something that I utilize as a strategy to kind of try to bridge folks and bring folks into conversation or bring folks into coalition, is understanding their why and trying to find like an access or connection point there. That's how I've navigated those moments. And sometimes you have to ask people to leave. And I know that's controversial, but sometimes
It
you do.
is.
But sometimes you do. If someone is being so antagonistic and just like it's like you're clearly here to cause the disruption, and you're not only are you harming me, but you're harming the people in the room, like you gotta go. So sometimes that's also the case too. More on the rarer side, but it has happened. But sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you just got to put your foot down and be like, no, I got to take care of everybody in the room, and you got to go.
A good reminder that this is your for a lot of the folks in here who are attendees are also speakers, and it's your session, it's your space. You're there to talk about the materials that you put forth in a proposal that we accepted, and multiple folks were just like, this is a good proposal, folks need to hear this, which means folks are going to want to listen to you, right? And it's okay to reposition that if someone's trying to be disruptive and be like, hey, that's not the time for this. If they want to have a discussion with you later, they can have a discussion with you later, but they need to be reminded that folks are here to learn something, and that you're here to teach something.
I'll add, there's nothing like facilitating a room full of facilitators. So keep that in mind. Bring all of those hints you just heard with you. Discover a few extras that you always wanted to use, because you are going to get one. I'll share a story where I had a participant in a institute that did not like my slides, and actually came up to the computer to change a slide that she wanted to have in a different way. Now I was shocked, taken aback, but at the end of everybody else in the room was too. So, and I knew that. So I just simply thanked her for her participation. You know, what else was I going to do? I was also in a session, my first year in Santa Fe, was a session that had been targeted for women of color and white women, and they're working together. And they had set rules in the beginning. It was an all-day institute that no one else could come into the institute as the day went on. And it became confrontational when folks said, I paid my money, I came to play. And they were told they could not come in. And this is NCORE, and you're supposed to be inclusive. And so at that point, the facilitators had to facilitate that set of perspectives. And so again, bring your best facilitation skills to the table. And then always feel that you've got an ally in the room. If it gets challenging, turn it back to your allies who you may not even know, and have them help with the discussion. You are not alone there, and everybody's got a learning edge. And maybe this is a time for the disruptors to know their learning edges.
Thank you, Pat. What I gathered from that first story is you are a lot more patient than I have ever been. Um, that's that's crazy. That's quite a take. Thank you, Pat. Let's see. Do we have any other Q&As? Do y'all have any advice for neurodivergent folks who may get overstimulated easily?
Good question.
Yeah. There will be designated rooms that are quieter than most. We don't want to call those I can't think of the word right now, just accessibility rooms for folks who do have those neurodivergent needs. We weren't able to secure a contract with a partner to provide the necessary professionals and the necessary tools for that, but there will be rooms that are assigned for just quiet spaces. If that is a neurodivergent need that you need, is to minimize the stimulants. That might be an offer for you. We'll be highlighting that and letting attendees know where that is. But I think that is knowing where that is and knowing to a route for to where to go there will be a good move for folks who are neurodivergent. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other tips and tricks for our neurodivergent folks.
I would say something I do often is during I get overwhelmed at NCORE every year. Like there's always like a day where I'm like, okay, I've been peopling a lot and I need to not people right now. I sit in empty session rooms. If there's a session block and the room is empty, I sit in it and just relax. Sometimes I take a nap, sometimes I decompress. Because sometimes for me, the way I need to like recharge and reset is to be alone for a little bit. So also like use the space that you have available to you. If this room is being used for something, there's usually signage in front of the door that will say like what sessions and what times things are at, or folks will come in and you'll see them getting set up. So if a room is just empty and you are able to go in it, like definitely, I mean, use it respectfully and mindfully, but I definitely would recommend like that's something that I do a lot.
Something that has happened also at the QT BIPOC caucus that Vanessa and I have the privilege of co-chairing has been folks have shared with us like some of their needs, like neurodivergent needs, if it's like, or even just needs in general. And I want to be transparent. I don't want to open up can of worms that like the caucus folks like don't work for NCORE. They may have closer connections to the staff. But you know, sometimes maybe you feel more connected to the caucus folks. Like feel free to ask any of them and they can try to meet a need. I know some folks have been like, I'm low on cash and hungry. Well, no one from NCORE can make, spot you $40 for the week. But if you share that with some folks, you may be able to. I was able to give folks some snacks that I brought to make sure folks are able to have a little extra, or finding a space like someone did share that they were a neurodivergent and speaking became really difficult, and we like chatted in a smaller group like after a session and stuff. So there's definitely ways it can feel, and I do understand that it might feel a little difficult to share that, especially when you're new to the conference. But know that, asking for that need is the first step to not only helping yourself, but then also helping the conference and the other community folks continue to think about that. No, it's not going to be perfect. There will be a lot of walking. I know for some folks that who are disabled, that might be difficult. And I know that was a question that was popped up for a second too. Um, but there's always someone to talk through, and hopefully those needs can be met a little bit.
Yeah, does anyone want to talk about the caucuses? I understand there's a lot of attendees who hear this is their first time. I think it'd be a good task to inform them on the caucuses and kind of invite them to those communities for those who want to.
I'll let one of the caucus chairs answer that one.
I can start us off. So caucuses are um social gatherings and spaces that are planned and held throughout the conference around parti a particular or particular identities, right? So for example, there's the QT BIPOC conference, caucus. Each caucus runs a little differently. There's native delegates. Each one is structured a little differently, but generally the point is for sub-communities to come together throughout the course of the conference and be like, how are we? What do we need? What is going on? But it's also, as Michael said, we may not work for NCORE, right? We may not be a part of NCORE staff, but it's also really important for us to hear kind of what's happening so that if we're able to do some sort of advocacy or some sort of just like, I can help like visibilize that with NCORE folks. That's kind of the space. It's also oftentimes where folks who are maybe a little more introverted or maybe a little more peopled out, it can often feel like a much more accessible entry point to meeting people. A lot of the caucuses in the beginning do a lot of like intros and like general meetings of folks in the first meetings. And just I saw the in the chat, usually is like the first full day of the conference is when the caucuses begin. It'll be in the program book, it'll be in the app, all the information will be there. Um, as caucus chairs, we try really intentionally to not over program each other, right? Because there may be attendees that want to attend multiple, if not, all of the caucuses, depending on their identities. And so we try really hard to do that, but we're also very mindful as caucus leads to add that, like, if folks are leaving early, usually that means either like, oh, I'm going to get food, or there's something else I'm going to. So like, also like, don't feel like you have to only like have loyalty to one caucus. If there's multiple that you want to engage with, you're able to do that as well. I don't know. Did I miss anything that other folks want to highlight?
I think you did wonderful. That sounds good to me. We had a question, are caucuses open or invite only?
Open. They are open.
Yes.
They are open to folks who identify with that community.
Mhm.
Different caucuses navigate the allies in those spaces or accomplices in those spaces differently. So I'll say for the QT BIPOC caucus, we are an exclusive space for QT BIPOC folks. We appreciate when white, queer, and trans folks come into our space, but yet we really want to center and highlight and prioritize QT BIPOC folks in the space. The caucus always has like a social outing at some point during the conference, and that opportunity is really the moment for allies, white, queer, and trans allies to join us. But the caucus spaces, particular for us, are a like closed, intentional community space.
Also in this, talking about caucuses, in the chat for folks who are new or haven't, I dropped a link to a page that highlights different insights from some of the different caucuses that NCORE has. I think it's every caucus. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I missed a caucus. But there's information about the co-chairs and all that good jazz on that link I just dropped. I think it's really can be a really useful time to kind of see who's there. And even on some of the pages, you have access, or not access, excuse me, you have the emails and contact information for the folks who are chairs for those caucuses. Feel free to reach out to those folks in advance, even if you have particular questions.
I think I think that link is off. I
Yeah.
clicked on it and it's error application. Steph just sent our new one. They're we're constantly getting kind of like messed around with the website from folks. So I think they just kind of like redid the URL. But yeah, that one from Steph is where you guys can find what Michael just said. Sorry.
No, yeah, I saw it a couple days ago and I was like, that's a pretty page. So
I'm like, what? I didn't even know.
me neither. No, I said, oh, okay, the pictures in there, everything. I said, all
Thank
right.
you to
So
Giovanni and Steph for all
yeah,
the work they do
thank
on
you,
this
Steph.
website.
And sorry about the confusion, y'all.
Thank you.
The real link is Stephanie just dropped in the chat. So, but that can be really helpful. Um, but yeah, I think caucuses are great. I think that they are really insightful, really beautiful. I know for the QT BIPOC folk, their first session is usually a lot of grounding. We share what other kind of Black, Brown, Indigenous, queer sessions are happening. And then usually the second one, it's sort of a bookend. And then we usually end up going out. Usually it's the Wednesday and the Friday. The QT BIPOC caucus hasn't landed where we're going to be just yet because we want to make sure that we aren't, we're working really hard to not double book ourselves with other caucuses, because the QT BIPOC caucus, encapsulates so many communities.
I have a question in here that wants me to discuss the logistics and flows of the days. I also remember a question about folks who were wondering about accessibility. I just want to let you guys know that after discussing with our community members, particularly those who are experts in studies related to disabilities and accessibility, they let us know that 30-minute breaks between each session was kind of a more accessible way for folks to get around. So there's going to be 30 minutes between each and every session, which is more than enough time to get to and from one room to the other. There's also, I think some of us know by now that the conference is split in between two places. That's kind of just how New York works. You have to have a 10,000 person conference to be able to get the New York Convention Center, and we're not that size. But the distance between the two and the path between the two is ADA accessible. It's ramps. It's a crosswalk. It's a stop sign that people get to go through. There's just a street between the two. But it's also only, I believe, 1.15 miles, so less than a fifth of a mile to get from one hotel to the other. Um, But yeah, on the logistics and the flow of the day, our Wednesday will look different than the rest of the conference. Our Wednesday we'll have 2 session slots in the morning. Right after we'll have a lunch break, and then another session slot for presenters, and then our keynote. After our keynote, we will have our welcoming reception, which is just a welcome to the community. Folks get to say hi. We kind of have just finger foods in a ballroom, and folks get to communicate and just kind of like live in community. Thursday and Friday, we will have 2 keynotes each, one before lunch and one in the evening at about 4:45. And then there will be sessions programmed in between those 2 keynotes. Lunches are on your own. There'll be beverages kind of provided throughout the hotel center and kind of grab and go, but food is not included, meals are not included. And yeah, I think Saturday is our last day. We have sessions scheduled for Saturday morning, and then after lunch, we have our closing keynote. But yeah, what's Oh, I'm sorry. There is no keynote on Saturday. I was just corrected. That's on me. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's more or less the flow of our days. Um, yeah. Do we have any more questions? Does anyone want to include anything in the Q&A? Is there any last bits of advice that any of our panelists want to provide? Any last comments?
I would just say have fun. It's a lot, there's a lot to do, but just remember, have fun, take it easy, and enjoy yourself.
I'll see you there. I do want to say, someone to mention, I saw something in the chat around some imposter syndrome. There was someone who was a student and also a custodian and was saying they're not big. I felt so much imposter syndrome when I was there because you're meeting with, there's like deans and, just, but you belong there. Like that's NCORE. And so, yeah, I think so many of us are experiencing that. And also, that's like what we're there to fight against. So just remember that and find community as you can and come say hi to us and yeah, have so much fun. And you're supposed to be there. Yeah, every single one of us.
I guess I would add, because it came up briefly in one of our other questions, if something happens, something always happens at NCORE. It's always a learning experience. But if something happens that really challenges you, find a buddy, an ally, someone, and feel really comfortable just chatting it out. If I don't know, maybe someone can say, if you are really alone at this conference and you are challenged, let me put it that way. What would you advise for finding someone? I know talking it out is the way to go, but how do you find that person?
I think you asked a really good question, Pat. And it's easier said than done, right? I know that most conferences and spaces really like favor the extroverted folks who are willing to go talk to a stranger and, get that conversation going. And for a lot of folks, it's just not how things pan out. So I want to name that first and foremost. I would say, it may feel really corny, but if you're sitting by yourself or you see someone else sitting by them, and you sit by that person, or if they're in a row of people and you're sitting there, or you're at a circle table sometimes, depending on the session, the setup might be different. I'm sure if you begin chatting with that person, right, that they will be open to having a conversation with you. And they may invite you into that space and such. And that person may not even be like your cup of tea for real, but hopefully they're able to like bring you and connect you to someone else in their community. Maybe you'll go to a caucus session together. I know it can be really, really strange to be at this conference and see so many large groups, because I will say for new people, so many of the folks who are there are like there in groups, like I'd say at minimum like 3 or 4. And some schools are bringing, 10, 20 people, and it can be really hard to be on your own, but to really challenge yourself just to like try to speak to those folks. And also, if you are alone and that's just like too much, like maybe try to have some folks in your back pocket who you can text or FaceTime or, stay connected with that way, which maybe won't change the isolation you're feeling at NCORE, because I know that's a really particular sort of loneliness when you're like in a sea of thousands of people invested in equity work and no one has maybe greeted you or felt like they've made that kind of connection. That can feel really lonely, but you know, we can worry about that piece later. I think it's best you try to find some kind of connection. And I think the best way is if you got some folks in your back pocket who are, from your other institution or other spaces you can call, just do that. And I will say this, then maybe challenging all the folks who've been at NCORE, when we see those folks, right? Because we're gonna see them, you're gonna know, when someone's there by themselves, maybe challenge yourself to say, hey, I see you're sitting alone here. Can we sit with you? Do you want to join us for lunch? Like, do you want to walk with me? I'm gonna walk to go get some water. Remember hydration. Let's maybe walk together. So maybe as a flip side to maybe challenge all of us, myself included, to make sure that when we see those folks, that we, wholeheartedly at least get, checking with them a little bit.
Thanks, Michael.
You. Michael, I have one more question for you that was sent to us via email. Hi, Michael. As a first-time presenter, I'm feeling a bit anxious about whether I'll connect with the audience in a meaningful way.
Mhm.
What helped you feel grounded or confident during your first NCORE session? And is there anything you wish someone had told you beforehand?
First, thank you for emailing that question. I'm flattered. Secondly, I think one way to kind of stay connected as you are presenting in that space is to like know your stuff, right? Don't start that presentation 2 days. Well, you can't because
Mhm.
you could, but you shouldn't. Hey, don't like know the material and know it deeply and intimately. I'm not asking you to like have every slide, you know, completely memorized, but I will say have practiced before, ask for feedback from folks. You still have enough time now. What is it, May 14th, 15th, May 15th? Check in with the folks around you to kind of provide that kind of feedback. Practice, as I said earlier, so you can have the words are more comfortable being in your mouth. So it isn't the first time you're saying, queer antagonism or, Hilton, whatever the hotel's name we were staying at, right? So I'd say that. I also think that understanding that you are capable, right? And whatever you need to do to help yourself know and really feel that, not just know it like, yeah, but like to feel it spiritually, emotionally, I would really say practice that. I, for myself, like if I'm ever feeling really anxious in the presentation, I still get anxious sometimes, particularly extra anxious. If it's like a new workshop or if you just had a really hard session and now you're presenting, I am really honest with with the community I'm with, and I say, hey, like I'm feeling kind of anxious. So if I, speak really fast, because sometimes my stutter will kind of manifest in weird ways, I will share that and to allow people to remind me and remind to that they're maybe speaking a little quickly. And I know for myself, anytime I feel too like structured in my presentations behind the podium, clicker in my hand, very just not who I am when I present, um, that's when I get kind of anxious. So I try to like feel more connected. I get from behind the podium to kind of be more engaged with the crowd. I always want to make sure it feels like a space we're in conversation and community and not just I'm here to give you these slides. This isn't a lecture. You're not in class. We're here to try to engage, but I definitely try to provide some of that insight. And if anyone ever wants to talk more about presentations, I threw my email in the chat. Please feel free to email me. I'm super happy to chat with folks before NCORE. I will say, unfortunately, when NCORE gets going, it's usually kind of a mad dash. presentations and pre-cons and caucuses and catching up. So it might be a little hard to, do a session right before, but, right now to, end of May, what is that, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Super happy to try and support.
Thank you guys so much. I think with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up unless anyone wants to add anything. I feel like we've covered a lot. I hope all of our attendees are feeling a little bit more prepared and a little bit more knowledgeable about what this conference is, about what this community is. I just want to thank you guys. Thank you, Sidelta. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Beth, for being here and providing this wisdom, providing all this knowledge, and helping calm folks' worries, and also just provide any information that you can. Um, Thank you to our interpreters for being along for the ride and assisting us and making sure that this was an accessible space for all. I'll be sure to send out this recording when we get a chance. But yeah, thank you guys. See you all in 2 weeks. We're so excited to welcome you into this community, or to just say hello again. You guys take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.